out of punk.
What happened with punk, quite quickly, it became a mainstream style and lots of lads came in. All the moshing started. It was fairly grim. And so I could understand why somebody like George got fed up with it.
My friend Marilyn had been a punk princess, poo-poopy-doo. Together we watched the glamour evaporate. I remember going to a punk gig. It was Gang of Four. I was doing this kind of Susie Sue look. I had like the frilly shirt and heavy makeup and the spiky hair. But it wasn't really punk, it was something more than punk. And I remember somebody throwing a beer over me and kind of ruining my hair. And I suddenly thought, well, this is not a scene I want to be part of. You know, this is just not for me. So there were people that were into punk that kind of had a lot of fun with it to begin with. Then it became very sort of student-y, violent, spitting, all that, pogoing. And then we kind of departed over here.
There was this kind of a lull in the scene and there didn't seem to be anything going on. It seemed like a sort of page was turning.
You started seeing parodies of it on television, maybe Freddie Starr or people dressed up like a punk. Then we kind of knew it was dying.
There was a sort of new wave of people coming through.
So here we are on Mead Street, which is this little road between Wardour Street and Dean Street. And this is a legendary place for a few reasons. Over there on the left used to be a very famous kind of brothel called the Golden Girls Club. All the hookers used to hang out the window and scream at us when we used to walk by. And then here, the doorway of the legendary nightclub, Billy's. This was a rundown 1970s club that Steve Strange and Rusty Egan took over on Tuesday nights and turned into this one-nighter event. And this sort of phenomena started in the 70s with people like Steve and Rusty, Chris Sullivan, taking over these kind of rundown clubs that no one was going to anymore and putting on these sort of nights for our crowd. This was only open for 12 weeks. It was the shortest lifespan of any of those clubs. It's been more than 3 decades since club runner Rusty Egan went down these stairs.
I printed up some flyers, Tuesday night, 10:30 till 3:30 a.m. We gave them personally to people. What have they done to my club? Turned it into a kitchen. Wow. 1978? Yeah, it was only about this big. You would walk into here, 10:30, maybe Kraftwerk playing, Bowie, some really down ambient music. Probably looked like the bar from Star Wars. A collection of people, which included Boy George, Philip Salon, Steve Strange. There was a reception, and there were some alcoves, some little alcoves you could get into, and then the DJ was against the far wall. It got very popular, overcrowded, in fact.
You met some of those people that you might have seen at David Bowie, you might have seen at a Susie gig, you might have seen at X-Ray Specs.
And then me in the DJ booth playing all their favourite Bowie and Roxy, and then dropping Human League, first ever Electricity by OMD, emerging electronica.
It was nice to start hearing all the Human League and all these new bands that were coming out. The soundtrack reflected what we were interested in.
Snapping away and recording history was art student Nicola Tyson.
I'd just get the prints developed at Boots and then bring them down the following week and try and sell them for beer money. But that wasn't very successful. Up here there's pictures of George. I think that's with Andy. There's Steve Strange.
I can't remember exactly where I met George, although he would come to Billy's in a sort of white pan-stick makeup.
Here we've got Marilyn with the kind of Jordan hairdo, Philip Salon, Philip's policeman's hat. Little Simon Le Bon one there. There's Andy Polaris.
You slowly start seeing individuals influencing each other with hair colour, more extreme makeup. And I think that is probably it as well. People started seeing people who were like, oh, they actually look a bit better than me. Next week when I come down here, you know, my hair's going to be 3 colours, not 1 colour.
Billy's itself was a sort of almost like a clip joint. The trans contingent of regulars that would go down there.
Living the nightlife to the full sometimes meant missing the last train or bus back to the suburbs. Luckily for us, the 70s were the squat years.
In the mid-70s, London was very run down, quite poor. Old property going to be pulled down, and then the money had run out. In that gap, you had the emergence of squatting.
Here we are in Carburton Street. Now, this street was full of these beautiful Georgian houses that have been demolished, and they built this, which is such a tragedy, but this is where we squatted. This corner here was our squat, and we lived here for about a year and a half in this house with various characters, you know, and one of those characters is over here. And this is the doorway where we did our famous picture. Do you want to do your pose?
I can't remember what it is.
I think I was just like that and you were going... you were doing one of your Marilyn poses. I first met Marilyn in 1977. We've been friends for 40 years. Falling in, falling out, falling in, falling out.
Do you remember the cute guys that used to live around here?
Yeah.
Yeah, these ones.
So that was this corner house was the sort of second location where we moved, but originally we lived just along here. We were somewhere here, and I lived on the first floor. And one of the funny things about me was that I had 2 rooms on the first floor, and I rented one of my rooms out to some French bloke. I was like a landlady, it was genius. And people say, how can you squat and make someone pay rent? I said, well, he wants somewhere to live. So I was very enterprising. My parents kind of came up to drop off some shopping, they were worried about me. They brought food one night. My dad brought a credit card and he kind of undid the lock and he put food in the cupboard. But I'd kind of decorated my bedroom with all these like naked photos of men. So my mum and dad left me a note. Lovely wallpaper.
Do you remember that outside toilet? Oh. That had no roof on it, so you'd be in the toilet and people would be up at the windows, like throwing things and going, wait, how long are you going to be? And it's just like, oh, God.
We had no water, but we had electricity because my boyfriend managed to kind of fix the wires, and so we had lights. Well, there was 2 brothers that lived just up here, and they had hot water. And I went out with one of the brothers.
And I went out with the other one.
Dave.
David
His name was Dave.
and Stephen.
And David and Stephen, and we used to go to their house to have baths.
Yeah.
And when we couldn't go there to have baths, we'd go to the hotel sometimes and wash in the toilets. This is where we lived for about a year or so.
Not this.
No, it was much nicer than this. Yeah, it was bonkers. We were growing up, or trying to. Punk had been a beautiful distraction, but we were moving on. It was still all about dressing up, but now we wanted glamour, tungsten lighting, punks in paint. Clubbing, you know, living hand to mouth, getting up at 2 in the afternoon, putting your face on, going out. You know, it was a very hedonistic time.
People were expressing themselves in a different way that was very stark.
Just wanted to be myself and express myself, you know, with the way I looked, my creativity.
There was a feeling of anything goes. In terms of style, we were fearless.
It was never about just one look. Variety was the vice of life.
I would see sort of Roman gladiators, men in capes.
I can remember my brother getting arrested wearing hot pants, plastic sandals and a space gun.
You couldn't afford to make stuff with nice lace like that. Where'd you get that? That's my name.
Philip Salon, he would go out in a wedding dress.
When you go out with Philip, like, on the town, he would, like, bring bags of clothes and he'd constantly be changing outfits.
It got to the point where I was turning up with suitcases and changing all night long. I know it's tragic.
Green eyeshadow, green blusher and green lips.
Being first with the look was vital. Even dear friends like Jeremy Hayes and Tazy Healy would become sworn enemies if you stole their eyebrows or their hairdo. It was very, like, competitive. If you copied something that someone else had done...
Oh, they'd cut you. They'd cut your clothes off.
Drinks thrown.
Spitting.
And what about the kilt? You know, there was this one time when...
Yeah, but that's you.
No, but you as well. There was that time when remember when you got dreadlocks?
Yeah.
Who had them first?
Jeremy.
No.
I would be in a club and somebody would kind of go, I think Boy George is coming tonight, and there would be excitement, like, what's he wearing?
George used makeup in such a sort of striking way. You can see all those, like, inspirations from the glam moment, from the Bowie moment, from the Lindsay Kemp moment.
You'd be dressed as a nun or something like that.
We didn't call ourselves New Romantics. That was the sort of newspaper term. But it was a small scene with a massive ego. 200 people at the most, but really publicity hungry. You know, we wanted people to know about us. But it wasn't a lot of people, you know, in terms of its kind of cultural impact. It kind of grew into what we did in the 80s. All the bands, you know, Duran Duran in Birmingham, Culture Club, Spandau Ballet. It grew into something bigger. you know, but actually the root of it was this tiny little crowd of people who were sort of full of their own self-importance, of which I was one. You've changed. In February '79, we had somewhere new to go. Steve Strange and Rusty Egan's new club, the Blitz. Steve was brutal on the door. Talk about kill to dress.
It's about fashion, it's about looks. I mean, the men dress outrageous, the women dress outrageous.
Spending hours dressing up beforehand. Steve would be at the door, looking you up and down.
Whatever their look is, they've got to have a look to get through the door.
So when he went into this club, I'd be playing Warzawa, you know, the B-side of Low, you know.
People like Susie Sue strutting about, Jordan, obviously, Sue Catwoman, like all these people who look just incredible.
It got busier and busier and busier, and then I'd play, doo-doo. Okay, are you ready? Listen to the voice of Buddha, the Human League. And that was it, they start to dance. Oh, there's a beat, and it's like a soundtrack. It was like, yes, Telex, Kraftwerk, Human League, Ultravox, Lou Reed, David Bowie, loads of Bowie, more Roxy, Susie and the Banshees, down, 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 down. Yeah, we'll have that. You know, Mark Bolan, yeah, we'll have that. So basically, I sort of mixed and matched the best of the cultures.
Almost everybody was either an artist, a fashion designer, or they were in a band. People who all had big dreams, big ambition, and drive, and were networking.
It was multicultural, it was multi-sexual, a quite extreme core of people looking to the future.
The future has suddenly arrived. It was time to get to work. All of my friends were like getting jobs. Everyone around me was like, what's he gonna do? And I was just carrying on doing what I'd been doing and sort of slowly realising, actually, this isn't gonna work. I need to get a job. When it came, it was a job I was perfect for, in fashion. I worked in this place here as more as a window dresser, really, and wannabe shop assistant. This was called street theatre, and it was very different. It was like a kind of quasi-punk, new romantic shop, lots of frilly shirts, lots of sort of, you know, tartan bondage, all that kind of stuff, but it was packed with clothes. Literally, you couldn't move for clothes rails. I think you would say we sold too much. And this shop was owned by a man called Peter Small, who was my kind of mentor. He really supported me. You know, I basically talked myself into a job here. Peter was a rag trade visionary. As far as he was concerned, my freakiness was an asset. He loved my eye for design, and he really encouraged me. He was like the great teacher I never had at school. He also had a shop here that was like a mod shop. And there's a great photo, a really famous photo of me doing the windows in the mod shop, because I kind of help them out sometimes as well. I did my first proper TV interview when I worked for Peter. I did a show called Something Else. Yeah, he was such a supporter. He was so important to the beginning of my career, really. It was 1980. In a few months, I would be starting Culture Club. Marty would start Zig Zig Sputnik. For now, we were just fodder for the TV freak shows.
You do dress outrageously, though. Why do you dress like that?
Because I want to. That's it, you know.
Clothes should be fun and not taken too seriously at all.
But it was my clothes that got me noticed by Malcolm McLaren. I was really good friends with Matthew Ashman, who was the guitarist in Bow Wow Wow, and he heard me singing and was like, oh, you should be in Bow Wow Wow, maybe we could have an extra singer, and suggested it to Malcolm, who saw the potential of maybe upsetting Annabella by having me in the band. So there was this big gig planned for the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park.
Back in the day, this is actually a really happening place for gigs. And I had come here to see Bow Wow Wow.
And Malcolm decided to have me sing.
A few songs had gone by, and suddenly it was announced that somebody else was going to come and sing, Lieutenant Lush.
In the encore, instead of Annabella coming back out, I came out.
So on they come.
You know, I remember being really frightened before I went on, and then getting pushed on the stage.
And I'm actually saying to my mates, wait a minute, isn't that Boy George?
There's lots of booing and like, who's that? And I sang this song.
And he's actually got a really great voice. Not as you'd expect. It was soft and gentle and sort of like honey.
I remember doing my thing and just loving it, you know, loving it.
We were all transfixed, and that was a bit of a moment.
That was really the beginning of me thinking I need to put a band together. You know, people from Eltham just didn't become famous. It was just like, you know, you're not going to really ever be a singer. You can sing all you like, but you're never going to make a living out of that. Culture Club came from some shambolic rehearsals with some musicians I'd heard of who had the right look. Only John Moss really knew anything about the business, and we followed him. Our tone was light and melodic, music to fall in love to, and the world seemed to do just that. The fourth single went straight to number one. Gone to the darkness.